Hello everyone and welcome back to JavaScript lessons on Codecademy. So last time we worked a bit on how we can access things in an object. Today we're going a bit more advanced. So we're going to be talking about constructors and classes. So let's just get straight into it. So let's learn the basics of OOP, which stands for Object-Oriented Programming. This is a very important programming paradigm that is widely used in the industry today. So let's start by introducing classes. We learned in the last course that constructors are a way to make objects, but they actually do even more than that. So when you make a constructor, you are in fact defining a new class. A class can be thought of as a type or a category of objects, kind of like how number and string are types in JavaScript. So take a look at our person example. So this, taken from Introduction to Objects 1, that was the previous course, so a few videos ago. In this case, Bob and Suzanne are two separate objects, but both belong to the class person. So what we need to do then is make something like this, but for a circle. So make your own class circle by building a constructor for it. The constructor for circle should have one property, radius, and take one argument for the initial radius. So how you define a constructor? It's similar to how you define a function, because it is in a way a function, but it's called a constructor. You say function circle, and then here you put the arguments that you want it to have. But then inside you usually use this and dot whatever you want to do. So in this case we want to set the object's radius to have the radius that has been given as an argument. So this means give this object being initialized a property radius, and the property's value is going to be the value that has been given as an argument. So you will see what I mean later on. Don't worry too much about it right now if you don't understand. But this is how you make a constructor or a class. So let's move on. Teach Snoopy. So we know that a class will have certain properties and methods, but what keeps track of what a given class can or can't do? What a class has or doesn't have, and that is the job of a prototype. Okay? So JavaScript automatically defines the prototype for a class with a constructor. For example, our dog constructor ensures that the dog prototype has a breed property. So this, I'm guessing. Remember, the dog prototype keeps track of what dog has, doesn't have, can or can't do. Okay, interesting. We know we can add methods to objects, and in line 7 we add the bark method to body. Hit run and you will see one woof printed when body barks. Notice what happens when we try to get Snoopy to bark in line 17. Even though Snoopy is of the class dog, he doesn't know how to bark because only body has bark method added to it. Okay, so what it's saying is we only add the bark method to body and we don't add it to the whole dog class. Okay, so let's see what we need to do. To fix this, start at line 15. Add a bark method for the Snoopy object. Okay, so that we can just do by copying this, pasting it here. Instead of body, we do Snoopy. You can make it just like the bark method for body, or type whatever barking noise you want instead of woof. Okay, so let's move on. How do classes help us? Classes are very important in object-oriented programming. This is because a class tells us helpful information about objects, and you can think of an object as a particular instance of a class. So you have in JavaScript, you have classes like, well, not classes, but objects, sort of to say, or variables like string, numbers, and booleans, and they're not a thing on their own, but you can initialize some variable of by the name, I don't know, me, to be equal to my name. So for example, you have me or new me no, never mind. That's not how you do it. Var me equals, and you can put something like that there. And you've initialized a string. So what you can do is, instead of doing it like this, you can initialize an object. So like above, you can initialize person. And that's one instance of the person object. If you're doing this, you're initializing an object. If you're doing this, you're initializing a string. But you wouldn't call it an object, you would call it a person, because that's the name of this class. And the name of a string class is a string. Hopefully that makes sense. So for example, look at our person class in a class again in the console. We know that any person will have a name and age because they're in the constructor. This allows us to create a function like print person name, which will take a person as an argument and print out their name. We know the function will work on any person because name is a valid property for that class. So what we need to do then is make a person called me. Oh wow, we actually need to make somebody called me. Var me with your own name and age, and print your name using print person name equals person, and then here name, and then we have age. There we go. And then we need to print name using print person name. So console.log, and we need to call on me whatever we want this to be. So me dot what was the print person me? Let's see. Oops. Oh, print person name, not me. There we go. Oh, okay, it's still something wrong. Make sure you created a person called me. Me equals new. That's what I forgot to do. There we go. So because I didn't have the new there, it just didn't work. It's just part of a syntax that's required for it to work. So what we're doing here is we initialize an object, or a new variable, me, which is an object, and then we give that object the properties of which are a name and an age, and those get stored under me. Then here we just call the name, or a function which prints out the name of what is stored under me. I honestly hope I'm making sense, but I think that it's quite simple actually. So prototype to the rescue. Here we have a very similar code as last time, but there is an important difference. Instead of using body.bark to add the bark method to just the body object, we use dog.prototype.bark. So where is that? Let me find it. Here. Okay. So click run this time, and both Buddy and Snoopy can bark just fine. So I'm guessing that this adds a whole method to an already made class, if you want to go that way. So Snoopy can bark too, even though we haven't added a bark method to that object. So how? This is because we have now changed the prototype for the class dog. This immediately teaches all dogs the new method. Okay, that's actually quite interesting. In general, if you want to add a method to a class such that all members of the class can use it, we use the following syntax to extend the prototype. So you have class name.prototype, so whatever you want to call it, dot the name of the new method. Oh no, prototype is the keyword, so you have this can change and this can change. Prototype always stays the same. So new method is the name of your new method. Class name is the in the constructor's name, and then prototype stays the same. And then equals, and then function, just like you would define any function, and inside whatever you want to do. So what we need to do then is click Save and Submit Code to move on to the next exercise from practice manipulating prototypes. Okay, so let's just compare this to the previous piece of code. So previously we had to add to Snoopy a new method so that Snoopy can bark as well. But here we make a golden retriever. We don't add a method to it, and it can still bark because we add a method to our constructor or our class. And then Snoopy can also do the same thing. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, do feel free to ask in the comments. I will make sure to answer them. But for now, let's move on. Prototype practice then. Here we have created a new class, cat, and its constructor. We also have two cats that would like to meow, but currently cats have no meow method. Okay, that's an interesting cat. Add a meow method to the cat prototype so that all cats can now meow. This method should print to the console meow and then call this method for each cat. So we need to do that here. So our constructor is called cat. So we need to do cat.prototype dot, what do we want to call the new method? I guess we can call it just meow, and that is actually what it wants us to do. I have a feeling I'm doing something wrong. Okay, I will see if there is something wrong. Oh no. Okay, those changed color after I did the equals function thing. Does it need to take anything in? I don't think it does, because we just call it and it can do it. So console.log, and inside there we can do meow. And then call this method for each cat. So we have Cheshire and Gary. I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly. So we need to do Cheshire.meow as well as Gary.meow. That should work. There we go. I don't know why it doesn't print anything out, because it should, because of this. That's weird actually. Let's check again if I'm doing this correctly. Get a hint, just in case I'm not doing it. And insert relevant code. Use that to print. Yeah, I think I'm doing it correctly. I have called the function. Oh no, that I haven't called the function. Meow would be just a value stored in cat. It wouldn't be the actual method. To call the method, you have to use parentheses, and now it works. So that's where I went wrong with that. And that can actually be a bit confusing sometimes, but make sure to remember that methods and functions have parentheses, and values don't use parentheses. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a like. If you didn't like it, dislike it and tell me how I can improve for next time. Also, please subscribe and share because it helps me out. And if you have any questions, as I said before, do feel free to ask in the comments down below. I will be happy to explain them for you. But until next time, thank you so much for watching and goodbye.